So, since you're a composer, I kind of wanted to get into how I start a song from scratch and how I'm able to come up with so many different ideas and sometimes, unique and individual ideas using all of the theory that we've been learning. So, the first part of it is in my head, and we've been talking about this, is it's one of your assignments, is I have the circle of fifths, and this is just the sharp key side. We haven't done the flats yet, but I use these to help me guide my writing process always. And I think you've said it before. You can see it on the guitar. You can make patterns based on what you use in the circle of fifths. And we're going to do exactly that today. And I'm going to provide some examples and sounds of things that I do kind of off the cuff so you can quickly write material, especially if you're feeling a certain type of vibe and want to use it. So the two types of vibes that we have right now are major scales and minor scales. Those are our scale resources. Um, the major scales sound particularly upbeat and happy. The minor scales usually sound more on the melancholy side. So depending on how you're feeling when you're writing, you're going to want to choose the right scale for it. So today, and I mean, of course, I love metal, so I'm going to go with or in rock, so I'm going to go with a kind of melancholy edge in my music, but I want to approach it from the theory side first and then start approaching, and then afterwards do it from the feel side. So, first things first, let's go over how to know which key to choose. On guitar, you can technically use any key you want, but I favor keys that don't have so many sharps that I lose my open strings. So you'll notice when you get past E, B major, you lose your A string. It becomes an A sharp, so you can't play that open string. You lose your D string, it becomes sharped. You lose the G, so you're going to be holding a lot more notes, and sometimes depending on the style that you play or your own personal play style, you might not want that. I like having open strings. I can play in the other keys, but I don't prefer to because it takes out open strings for me. It's just a personal preference. It's not the only way to do things. You can see that with F sharp major as well because you lose the E, the A, the D, and the G, so you have like no open strings available. And then C sharp major, you have no open strings because all the notes are sharp and all of the strings are naturals when we normally tune. So I like to keep it between C and E major, as well as the relative minor scales that accompany them. So let's keep it simple. Simple is usually better when you're learning. So I'm not saying only play an A minor or C major, but try to keep it onto the ones that have like the lower amount of sharps to make this process a little bit easier to learn before you step up into the game of doing like C sharp major and F sharp major and things like that. Okay, so the next part is we choose our key. I like E minor because I get that open E string. Like I said, I'm feeling kind of a rock, like heavy metal vibe, so I'm going to go with E minor. Just as a quick reminder, how we know this is E minor, to get the relative minor scales of each major scale, you just go to your major scale and you count up 6. So in the key of G, if I go G, A, B, C, D, E, that was 6 notes, and I stopped on E. Make sure you count G as 1. So E is the minor scale that we're going to use. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to a program called Guitar Scientist that you can use online to help you map out what your guitar will look like. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to get rid of some of the things I had written in, so these are gone. So we said that we were choosing the key of E minor, which has 1 sharp. If you need to go back and look at your circle of fifths, totally okay. So we have E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. And the same thing that I've told all of my students, write out your resources, write everything so that you can kind of see it and know what to work with. Eventually this will get stuck in your head. I play in this key a lot, so I don't typically have to write it down because I already know what I can use in there. But it helps because it'll help you see patterns that maybe you haven't done before. So E is going to get a lowercase 1. I know it's kind of hard to see with that background. F sharp is diminished, so we get a lowercase 2. G is normally the major chord. It's normally 1 in G major, but since its position is 3, it's still uppercase. It's just a 3 now. A is normally minor. B is normally minor. C is major. And then D is major. some rules I like to follow when writing songs. I typically start on 1. This is not something that you always have to do, but when you're learning again, it's best to start here. Start on 1, and then end on 4. Oh, it's 4 is not uppercase, sorry. Or 5. Or, I'm sorry, you have a bunch of options. 3. 3 is really cool, it's very rock. And then 7. Some people will say, well, why not 6? 6 works, but it doesn't work all the time, so I'm not going to include it right now. Again, the best thing you could do is just test it out in the future, and if E still feels like the tonal center, then you're good. But if it doesn't, sometimes ending on 6 might be the reason that it doesn't work. Okay, so next, we have our scale in front of us. We need to see what we're working with on guitar. So we're not going to fill in every single string right now. Typically when people write riffs, they stay in the lower range. Eventually we'll do the upper range as well, but we're going to start lower for now. So here's what we're going to do. E on guitar is here. F is normally the first fret, but because it's sharped in this key, we have this note. Then we have G, A, B, C, D, and E. Now, just working off of this string alone, you can do a whole bunch, and this is where the writing part comes in. So if you wanted to write something melodically, it really does help to reference the open E a lot, and that's what I'm playing right now is the open 6 string. And I'm just going to play through the notes so you can hear it. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. It even sounds melancholy when you end on it. Now that we have these notes out in front of us, I'm just going to do a very melodic riff on just the 6th string. So I'm only going to play on just the 6th string, just messing around. Notice how I'm going to play an open E a lot to retain the fact that I want it to feel like it's an E. So that's one riff, right? I'm going to do another one where I won't play the open E a whole lot, and I'll play more melodically. Now the problem with playing that way is, yes, it's very melodic and it's nice and it's easy to remember, but it's very weak sounding when we only play the open string. So if you're not feeling that melodic vibe because it might feel too weak, fill it in with power chords. Wherever your first finger lands, so if you play, well, obviously your first finger won't play the open string, but you'll do an open power chord. It's just open and then 2 on the 5th string. If you go to the G here, for instance, you could just do a power chord with your first finger on G, and then on A, and then B, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a riff this time melodically, and then I'm going to try to fill it in with power chords. Now I'm going to do it with power chords. Now for the assignment part. I'm only playing on the 6th string right now, but what I'm going to do is I want to make up a bunch of different ideas. So I'm going to do my first, I'm going to try to see if I can remember my first riff. If not, I'll pick one. So I'm going to go like this. That's my first riff. Now I'm going to come up with my second riff. That was with power chords following the notes on the 6th string there. Now I'm going to make up a riff that's a little bit more unique. I'm going to use the rules over here because I didn't write a progression at first. So that's something I should mention, that this comes in now. Like we've done in the past, I'm going to write 4 boxes, and each of these is going to be for a chord. And if I want to write something kind of on the fly here, I'm going to start on 1. Next, I'm going to try, I'm just testing out things. I'm going to do 1, I'm going to do 5, so that's E, this is B. I'm going to do, let's try something a little different. Let's do D. Oh no, let's do C. So I'll do 6. and then I'm going to do D. So what I have here on this one is I have an E. I'm doing it as a power chord, so I just have open 6th string, open E. Then I do the 7th fret for B. Then I do C at the 8th fret. And then D I can do up at the 10th. So I'm going to go like this. E, B, C, D. I kind of like how those sound. Whoops, sorry. Now I'm going to do something rhythmic with it. Kind of a cool riff. Now what if I started, now I can think of each of these as part in a song. So this might be an intro for me to go. I'll do it a few more times. Now I go like. Maybe 2 more. Next part, I might do the or maybe speed it up. And immediately I have 3 riffs that I could use for a song. So what we're basically getting into today, and here's the assignment, and I'll send this to you in Skype so that you can see it. First thing that you want to do is pick a key, pick it on the vibe that you want to use. So pick a major or minor scale. Try to favor open strings because this was really easy to do because I had that open E. After that, come over to Guitar Scientist and write down the scale at the top. Have that up. And underneath, make sure to put your Roman numerals. I know I didn't start with Roman numerals, but I wrote them all down in advance before I got down to writing the song. Next, come down to the bottom and then fill in your notes on the guitar so that you can see what notes you're going to be playing in advance. This is your palette. Especially if we're talking about feeling, this is your feel palette. We already know that this is going to have that melodic kind of serious, more melancholy kind of edge to it. So that's nice to have. Write a few riffs. You can pull up a drum track and just start playing around with these notes. I reference E a lot when I play to make sure that we feel like we're in E. And then if you want to add big, bulky chords and things like that into the progression, or progressions in general, write out like four bars, and then use this. Start on 1, end on 4, 5, 3, or 7. I should have said 3, 4, 5, or 7. But use those. I started on 1, and I ended on one of these. I typically do not use F sharp because F sharp, sometimes if you hold it, sounds kind of gross in this key. So I'm not saying don't use it, but test it out to make sure that you like it. If you have any questions, let me know. This is definitely one of those ways that I'm able to come up with a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time, is planning for the feeling I want to have, and then playing around, everything structured out and ready to go. I'll see you, man. Keep up the good work with this stuff.